Throughout the video, I'm going to be dropping random codes like this. These are refrag codes which I'm pretty sure you know about, but they offer a lot of cool features on their servers like restrat, nadar, etc. If you want to try out refrag free for a week, spot the codes in my video and you will gain competitive tier access. One of the last bright stars shining in the Astralis lineup is an AWPer, who's gone way above the expectations of what a player can do in their career of Counter-Strike, gaining the traction of casuals and pros alike, wanting to understand how the sniper can be used to be everywhere, but yet hard to track. That is no different to today, and how Dev1ce is currently dominating the CT side AWPing leaderboards. Hey, I'm Smirky, and today I want to look at Dev1ce and how he AWPs on the CT side of Ancient, so let's begin. But want to get individual training and CS classes for 30 days for 50 cents on your first month?
Affirmative.
Well, thanks to today's sponsor, Dev1ce Academy, you can.
Yes, my friends, yes!
Dev1ce Academy is the CS school where you can join frequent classes hosted by various pro players and coaches. In these classes, you can submit demos in the Discord to be reviewed and critiqued by the coaches, or join them in theory sessions on a map. And I will also be hosting some of these sessions myself. On top of this, they host weekly scrims where you can jump into a 5v5 with coaches on both teams, helping you during and after the game.
Our enemies tremble.
This entire course is $29 per month, but again, you can try the course for pretty much free for 30 days by using code Smirky at checkout, which equates to 12 classes. Now go on and rank up. Before I begin, I want to quickly talk about how Astralis plays Ancient. I've broken this down in a video on the Not Out Here channel, which you should check out. We broke down the different and similar metas teams are using throughout the map. So, teams will typically do a 1-2-2 default, with the AWPer being the mid/B rotator. However, in Astralis, they generally play a 1-1-3, with Dev1ce starting B or ending up B in the mid round, with sometimes some early mid control sprinkled in. So, in the video, we will mainly see Dev1ce over at B, but you can use this guide to have a better understanding of mid control, and if you want to lean more mid, then B. Now let's start with what he does early B. At times, Dev1ce may swap with the ramp player and will be in charge of ramp control. Typically when Dev1ce does this, the ramp player who is supposed to be ramp may be somewhere else in the map, like mid, or maybe doubling up in cave. When Dev1ce does this, he will throw a Molotov towards ramp and get scoped in, ready for any Ts to run up. Afterwards, he will just hold the angle, waiting for the Molotov to fade before he eventually creeps towards long, clearing ramp as he transitions. We can see Dev1ce will do the exact same thing, except he will have a HE he can use to bounce off the wall, landing behind the Molotov, dealing some little damage. But afterwards, he will slowly transition to long, where he gets the opening kill. Alternatively, Astralis may do a boost on long. In this boost, Jazzaddict will crouch underneath this point, jump and stand up, so Dev1ce can see over long and through the B doors. This angle can really catch people off, especially if they never experienced it before. But soon after, Dev1ce will soon want to fall off, so he will just throw a grenade at the door, Jazzaddict will give him another one, and he will later fall off and make his way into cave. But it is worth noting, if you do decide to do this boost, and the Ts are going to rush B, your chances of survival as an AWPer is pretty much null. Now at times Dev1ce might want to start long, and he might help his teammates out on B by using his own Molotov. When he decides to use his own Molotov, he uses this lineup, where he puts his crosshair underneath these bricks, holds A, and jump throws once his crosshair leaves the box. This Molotov will land on ramp, allowing him to block off the entrance, and in this round, he will get dropped an extra Molotov he can use to Molotov the boost, allowing him to get onto the angle safely. Now let's take a look at the angles you can play on the B bomb site. The first angle I want to take a look at is short. This angle is probably the most popular angle to play as an AWPer, as it's very quick to get to if you rotate him from mid or A, and you have deep long vision to ramp. Also, with this position, it's easy for you to fall off and maybe rotate long or back to mid, and if you are sticking your face into the wall like Dev1ce, you should be dodging quite a few flashbangs. Now swiftly, I want to move on to long. Long is a very popular area for Dev1ce to play. From here, again, you can have a deep, long vision onto ramp, denying any lurks and make it difficult to creep up. But you do need to be aware that you are open to cave, and you're also very vulnerable to flashbangs. In this round, he's going to play here for a very long time, where he decides to move into this angle. From this angle, he doesn't need to worry about players coming up on the boost, he can just focus on players peeking out from ramp. But it is worth noting, it can be hard to fall off if you get that kill. Alternatively, if you are playing along, you could solely focus on the boost. In this round, Dev1ce is crouching so he's not open to ramp and is solely focused on the boost. Meanwhile, his teammate on long can hold ramp. However, shortly after, he decides to peek out where someone does do the boost, and at this point, he goes for a bit of ego fights, just constantly re-peeking with the AWP and fragging out. Similar to the previous angle, you could play this one where you are a lot deeper. But the pros of this is that you're not open to cave. Meaning, if you don't have a CT player in there, no one can't walk out and just pop your brains. After waiting roughly 10 seconds, Dev1ce wants to peek into ramp. So to do this, he will smoke off cave so he doesn't get shot from the back, and he will slowly scope in with his AWP. In round 7, we can see Dev1ce is playing the long angle, but as the smoke starts to fade, he decides to fall off and hold this angle, where he can just hold cave. But shortly after, Spirit will make presence on B, and he will transition to this angle. And this angle is pretty good in catching the T's entry pathing onto the site, as in this round, he gets the kill onto Chopper and can immediately tuck in. And luckily for him, the T's decide to smoke him off, allowing him to escape. Maybe some rounds you might want to hold Cheetah. I think holding Cheetah with an AWP is very powerful, especially during the early rounds, as the T's may just be rushing in, trying to quickly get that control, thinking they're going to fight a rifler. But in the mid round against Cloud9, this is going to be super effective, as Cloud9 hasn't cleared Cheetah, and with so little time left on the clock, Hobbit is just going to go for a dry clear, which results in his death. At this point, he can immediately fall off, not wanting to give away the man advantage. But if you don't want to risk peeking into Cheetah, you could play this angle. You could play this angle instead of cave. In this round, Dev1ce is just holding the angle, waiting for any T players to peek. But I will say this angle is pretty much one and done, as if Dev1ce does get the kill, and there is another player behind him, as an AWPer, you have nowhere else to retreat with enough time to get away. In round 23, he's going to be holding this for a very long time, where he hits a very nice shot into Nafne. Luckily for Dev1ce, the trader behind Nafne was Shiro, who is AWPing, making it difficult for Shiro to go for the trade. And as a result, Dev1ce can just sit in this corner, keep jiggling, and wait for the round to finish. Against Spirit, we can see something similar, where he places himself back on the angle and gets the opening. At this point, he's ready for any trades to come through, but then immediately falls off with the first opportunity he gets. Now let's take a look at Dev1ce and when he plays towards mid at the start of the round. Now as I mentioned at the start, you can check out the video I did on Art's channel where I broke down the CT ancient meta, but for Dev1ce and Astralis, he will typically throw one of two util sets. At the start of the round, he will make his way through house, drop his smoke since he doesn't need it, and then throw a Heya. After that, his teammate in Blame F will smoke off the entrance. The nade and smoke combo will make it difficult for the T side to walk out, as they're going to take a lot of damage and will get a grey screen coming through the smoke. The other util set you could throw is a Molotov and nade. The molly will force the T side to use their smoke, giving you an indicator if they're rushing out. And of course the nade can do some juicy damage. Now when Dev1ce does get out of house at the start of the round, every time he jumped out and played towards donut. And this is because typically at the start of every round, house will be smoked off, so it denies the AWP. To counter this, Dev1ce will get into a position where he can utilize the AWP, so in this round he jumps out of donut and he's watching for any players coming fast out of heaven. Shortly after, he will slowly peek out and hold the smoke, and he's safe to do this because his teammate in glaive has the cross, allowing Dev1ce to focus on elbow. And against Cloud9, we can see Dev1ce will go for the same peek, but except this time, C9 will try to smoke off donut. This would have made Dev1ce completely useless, however he decides to play in front of the smoke with the AWP, seeing if he could catch a T off guard. Which in this round he slowly peeks out because again his teammate in glaive has cave control, allowing him to get the kill onto Hobbit. Now, what are some of the angles Dev1ce will take when he plays towards mid during the mid round? Well, from watching his demos, he will typically play in donut. So let's take a look at a few of those angles. In this round, he's going to creep up and play on the left side of donut. From this position, he can catch the T side trying to cross mid, denying any house lurks, but you do need to be aware that of course you can get peeked from the angle that Dev1ce is holding, or you could get peeked through this ledge. But in this round, it works pretty well. Alternatively, you could play on the right side. Playing on the right side has a similar advantage than playing on the left, however you can't get peeked from the ledge, forcing the T's to peek you through this linear gap. But the negative of playing this angle is that it can be hard to fall off after taking the shot. Now, with these angles you could have a teammate with you. In round 18, Dev1ce is playing on the left side, where he has a teammate in leaderboards on the right. So if Dev1ce takes the shot, it allows Dev1ce to fall back safely, and hopefully leaderboards is able to catch them while they're focused on chasing Dev1ce. And in this round, Dev1ce again is playing on the left side, but this time leaderboards is playing deep inside of donut, with his teammate in Buzz who's playing Broke. And from the looks of it, leaderboards is wanting to help Dev1ce and Buzz, so he's kind of playing in the middle, watching for players walking out of main and helping Dev1ce if he needs to run away. Now, typically twice a game, Dev1ce loves to start A. Typically when Dev1ce starts A, Buzz, who is typically the A anchor, will play towards mid. Meanwhile, Dev1ce will take his AWP at the start of the round and scope in into main. With his very early positioning into main, it is very effective against teams who is trying to send a player fast into main. Against Spirit, this works really well, as when he gets the kill, it immediately falls off and Spirit decides to cancel the execute once Patsy dies, who was the entry and wasn't able to make any space. And in rounds where Dev1ce doesn't get a kill, he might just sit there the entire round, waiting for that possible lurk or execute to come through. Against Cloud9, he literally stood here the entire game, but unfortunately when they do go for an execute, Dev1ce will get smoked off, and well, Dev1ce will just fall off to plat, throw the smoke to waste time, and allow him to reposition into temple. Now, what are the angles Dev1ce will play during the mid round when he's playing on A? Well, let's take a look. Typically, Dev1ce will play either in temple or towards Broke. In this round, we can see he's playing inside of temple, looking towards main. With this angle, it's pretty much impossible to flash him off, giving him a high chance to get into a fight with likely a rifler. But shortly after this round, Dev1ce will decide to play Broke. And with this angle, he has some nice deep vision into main, but you can get flashed off the angle via flashbangs above main, so you do need to be aware. Against Cloud9, we can see Dev1ce will come out of temple and play Broke. Cloud9 has made presence on main, so he will hold this angle, waiting for any C9 players to run out. But after not getting anything, he slowly peeks in, taking the angle into main. And the benefit of playing Broke is that you're able to pivot from main into donut. But unfortunately in this round, Cloud9 are going to do an A split, meaning BlameF is going to die, allowing Cloud9 to sandwich Dev1ce through donut and main, putting Dev1ce in the worst possible spot with the AWP. Personally, if your donut player does die, I would recommend falling off the temple so you have a better chance of survival. Now, it's nice understanding how to play the different sides and how the different angles can be utilized with the pros and cons, but the way Dev1ce uses the AWP on the CT side of Ancient is pretty damn well. When it's needed from Dev1ce, he will occasionally go in for re-aggression. Dev1ce may go for re-aggression because either A, the T side has gained a lot of map control, B, perhaps the T side is making a lot of noise on one side of the map, so Dev1ce could punish it by peeking into the opposite end. Or he will do it if they're a man down. And the way that Dev1ce typically re-aggresses is simply just scoping in from his position and slowly peeking the angle. If he has teammates with him, either they will peek behind him or they will peek in front of him. His re-aggression is very simple and yet very effective. Another aspect I want to look at Dev1ce's game is his rotations. A set rule for Dev1ce, it seems like every time he gets a kill, he will rotate to a new position. And typically on Ancient, that seems to be the opposite side of the map. One round the T side will spot him in one position, he gets the kill, they may try to punish him or avoid him, but next thing you know, he's in a totally different position, making it super difficult for the attacking side to find him and avoid him. The last aspect I want to look at Dev1ce's game is his scoping. When Dev1ce is moving into positions, he will calmly pre-scope and slowly move into that area. By scoping early and staying scoped, it makes it so the T side can't hear where he is. So he can get into some sneaky positions without the T side even knowing. A good example is him holding main, then suddenly he wants to play donut, so he stays scoped in, slowly moving up and taking the mid angle where he gets the frag. When watching Dev1ce's demos, I've noticed he's proactive. He understands when he needs to rotate into a new position or push into enemy territory. He's unreadable. Dev1ce constantly switching his positioning in the mid round and staying scoped in for long durations makes it hard to read where he is, leading players to accidentally walk into Dev1ce's crosshairs. And lastly, he's patient. He will just sit in an area for a while, waiting for a good enough reason to move, if that's pushing into an area or getting the kill and switching his positioning. You don't have a pistol for CT side Anubis? Check out this video I did where I broke down Vitality CT pistol, where Vitality had very dangerous traps set up on both sides. Apart from that, thanks for watching. Cheers goes to Academy for the sponsor. See ya in a bit.